I spoke with members of the Rockets team. They didn't like the feeling that maybe a player on their team was attacked. I said, which player? Was this about Chris Paul? And the teammate said, yes, this was very much a rallying around Chris Paul.
All right, stop it right there. You hear that? After asking multiple players within the Rockets locker room, the consensus was very much confirming that, yes, this was a raid led by Chris Paul. These were the initial reports immediately following the incident, not only by Ross Gold on Woode, but by multiple other reporters, multiple other inside sources. And yet, through 20 interviews conducted in the league's investigation, they flipped the script a full 180. Now all of a sudden Harden and Paul were peacemakers in the situation. Now, full disclosure, there is often fabrication to these initial reports in a rush to get that immediate scoop, that catchy live headline. And a lot of these false presumptions weren't even a result of false reporting. It was a result of social media running away with the most entertaining story, the sexiest story. I mean, I gotta admit, these opportune memes, as far away from the truth as they were, I swear they had me dead. I mean, just the idea that Chris Paul had that whole group in full military squad mode, writing up a scheme, an intricate plot to ambush LA, all complete with a secret passage taken, a flank from the back entrance, and a diversion created at the front door. That shit was some beautiful storytelling. And even though it didn't exactly go down like that by any means, the secret passage was nothing more than an obvious hallway in plain sight. Clint Capella was not involved. The man who came to the front door was Tariq Black, and more importantly, there was no aversion. Rather, simply a dude startled by the commotion and gone to investigate. Nonetheless, how far is that cooked up scenario really from reality? If you think about it, it really is basically what happened, minus a couple insignificant details. Yes, there was a scheme created by a group of players. They took it into their own hands as a group to seek out the opposing team's locker room, their personal space, disrespectfully invade that shit through a back entrance and confront these dudes. Whether it was led by Trevor Ariza or Chris Paul, it doesn't really change the narrative. What it does change is the perspective on the inner workings of that team. Who is really in charge? If the two leaders were the so-called peacemakers, well, then they did a pretty poor job keeping the peace. How are both the supposed most respected players in that group telling Ariza, telling Green not to take action, not to follow through, yet the full group still ends up in that locker room? I mean, to me, that spells trouble in the leadership of this group, a lack of respect, a lack of camaraderie. And I'll get into this more in a second. I know a lot of y'all are already telling me that the fact that the team is so passionate about having each other's backs, about confronting the quote-unquote enemy, is in itself a sign of strong camaraderie. But that's false, and I'm going to tell you why I believe that in a minute. But right now, let us address the insanely coincidental nature of this whole situation. So you're telling me that with one of the most influential, most popular players in the league upon return from injury, with 2 consecutive nationally televised matchups imminent, one of which a highly anticipated meeting against the Golden State Warriors, with Houston being their only real competition out west, the only group that could prove to be somewhat of an obstacle in Golden State's path to a 4th straight finals appearance, with Chris Paul serving as such an important figurehead of the league as the president of the National Basketball Players Association. Now all of a sudden, him and Harden were peacemakers in this situation. Now Green and Ariza are suspended in lieu of the 2 much more significant team members. I don't know, man. Doesn't that all just sound a bit too good to be true on just so many different levels? I ain't saying that it's for sure a conspiracy by the league. I'm not even saying that the league would be straight up lying in that case. But to me, it seems pretty likely that there was a premeditated, favorable outcome to start the investigation, and that the league blatantly disregarded some key facts in an attempt to achieve that ideal end result. Not a lie, but a cover-up. You let me know how you feel about it in the comments below. I'd love to hear some of your theories, because we'll never know what exactly went down Monday night, though it sure is fun to speculate. Now, I want to revert back to this whole Houston leadership dilemma. I've been wanting to talk about this since Monday night. That lack of a clear account of events, though, that's what's held this up. A lot of contradicting information out there, and I didn't want to jump to any conclusions. So I decided to wait, give it a minute, let the picture get a little bit clear and a little bit clearer. with every new piece of information that came out of that investigation. And that's what today's sponsor is all about. Make the picture a life clear with JINS's stylish and affordable frames. Now I can honestly vouch for them myself because JINS did send me a pair. I've had them for about a month, so I've had some time to see how they hold up, and I honestly have zero complaints. The frames themselves are beautiful, but looks aside, they're crafted with high quality material, very durable, feel very solid. They're not going to get loose over time, and the coolest thing about them, man, is they did actually hook me up with some JINS screen lenses. Now basically the purpose of these lenses are to block out some of that blue light that's emitted from your computer screen, your phone screen, TV, whatever. This blue light is extremely damaging to your eyes, especially if you're someone like me who spends a great deal of time just staring at a screen. You know, I spend hours upon hours writing, editing my videos, more often than not late at night, and it does have a negative effect on my eyes, all that strain on my ability to get a good night's sleep. So these JINS screens have come in extremely clutch. They're very effective, and they have two options: JINS screen clear and night. The clear block out 25% of that blue light. The night, on the other hand, those block 60%. So if you're someone like me, you spend a lot of time before bed on your smartphone, on Twitter, whatever, you should definitely check these guys out. They got hundreds of frames, both for men and women, whether you want a prescription or just for style or just for the JINS screen. They got a ton of affordable options, and for the level of quality, man, these prices are almost unheard of. Now you can order online or in store. The link is in the description. Go ahead and use my promo code ClayAllen for 10% off your purchase. All right, back to Houston. Like I said, I didn't want to jump to any conclusions, but man, a lot of the facts are still up in the air, and they will be indefinitely. So it's not as if it's really gotten that much more lucid as the smoke's cleared, but nonetheless, these are my 2 cents. Now, after the initial reports, there were a lot of people bashing the leadership abilities of Chris Paul, and don't get me wrong, I understand that, I do. But here's where I differ from the public opinion. When those first reports came out, while everyone was complaining about Chris Paul, I was like, hell yeah. Think about it. We thought at the time that the man had the ability to rally that whole team around him and talk him into doing something truly drastic. I mean, that's true leadership. That's respect. That's soldiers in line behind you, ready to follow you into battle. But this? If this is true, neither Harden or Paul were able to convince these guys otherwise, to get them to stop. That, in my opinion, is the real sign of poor leadership. When I first heard the story, I was also hearing from several that Harden and Paul were having some sort of disagreement, some argument prior to the incident. And my initial thoughts were, alright, so Chris is trying to get him into that locker room, and Harden was standing firm against him. And that's a little troubling in itself, but this is much worse in my opinion. Teammates, brothers, family, they have disagreements, they have debates, but at least they have the level of respect for each other to hash it out without making a scene. But a disagreement between the two far and ahead leaders of the team and then some role players that results in the role players getting their way, that results in making a scene of that caliber, that's worrisome. And this entire story that the league put out, man, it just doesn't sound all that plausible to me. So I hope, for the Rockets' sake, that it is a conspiracy. Otherwise, this team, to me, has some real issues in terms of chain of command. So hopefully this was a fabricated investigation by the league to keep these stars active for those 2 big games. And while we're on that, the latter of the two, that was an incredible game, man. So I can't really complain about whether there is something suspect going on behind closed doors. I can't wait to see these 2 teams go head-to-head in the playoffs. And if the Rockets add some reinforcements this offseason, another superstar like Paul George or LeBron, this will truly be a great super team rivalry, the likes of which we may have never seen before in this league, especially with the pre-existing bad blood already between these 2 franchises. And that's the benefit of this Golden State dynasty. I said it time and time again, and here it is playing out right before our very eyes. Now, one irrelevant thing I want to comment on that game before I wrap this thing up, from a Warriors fan's perspective. Man, I still remember it like it was yesterday. Years back, the Warriors had an early season matchup against LA. May have even been opening night, if I remember correctly. Keep in mind, this is back before Steph had emerged as a true superstar in this league. Back before he was even a star, really. And Chris Paul, of course, was on the Clippers at the time. And they were going head to head. And also keep in mind, this was still during the dark days of the Golden State Warriors franchise. Yet, Like the beginning of every season at the time, us Warriors fans, we still had irrational hope. You know, it was that whole we believe mentality. We're like, all right, new year, clean slate, 0-0 record. This is going to be the year we shock the world. We sneak into the playoffs like 2007. Because that's all we really wanted at the time. Little did we know the success that awaited us in the near future. But that specific year, something felt different. I believe it was like 2012, right after we traded for Bogut and made that big shift. He was about to make his debut with the team after being out for injury ever since his arrival months back. So there was a different level of hope that season. It was a different atmosphere. Clay was starting to come into his own. We had some things to look forward to. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I may be off on the time period, a year or two. But nonetheless, the season had the same feel to it. And Golden State really competed in that game. I remember it was exciting and it was surprising. We had looked at the Clips as one of the elite teams in the league at the time, but come the fourth quarter, and we just couldn't close it out. We didn't have the star power, while CP3 was making play after big play and eventually put the thing out of reach. And I remember after the broadcast, Barnett said something along those lines, like the Warriors were right there, close enough to touch it, but they just didn't have the star power to close it out right. Now tell me, why did I feel like I was back in 2011, 2012 last night? Like, for real, why was I looking at Steph thinking that he's the same dude he was then? That small, skinny, doubted dude that he was, looked at as one-dimensional, just a shooter with no killer instinct, no aggression. Sometimes, I swear, man, sometimes I feel like Steph just turns back into that same man. Overambitious, poor passes, risky plays. He just looks like he's fresh out of Davidson all over again. At this point, the unanimous MVP, all the accolades, all the awards, all the history that he's made, the footprint he's already left on this league, the revolution he began. And still sometimes he looks like that small dude out of Davidson that Minnesota passed on twice in a row for alternative point guards. That dude that I looked at and told my friend after that game, I was like, I just can't see it anymore. I can't imagine Steph with his baby face running up the court, leading a team into crucial moments in the playoffs. I didn't think he had it in him. That's why I preferred Monte at the time. Obviously, I was wrong. I was way more than wrong, man. But sometimes he plays a game, and I just feel like I'm just watching the same exact player. Just a little rant, man. Steph's fine. The dude's incredible. Just had to get that off my chest. Like always, leave your thoughts, feelings, perspectives in the comment section down below. Maybe it's time to revisit that question that I had asked you guys a couple weeks back. How many games would a Rockets-Warriors playoff series reach? Let me know in the comments. Let me know how you feel about this sketchy league investigation. What do you think really happened Monday night? And be sure to follow me on Twitter. Let's keep this conversation going on there and in the comments section. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'm signing off. Peace.